Today we're going to review my Ashford e-carter. First we're going to go over the parts of the machine, and then I'm going to review the pros and cons of the machine. I've owned this machine for a few months now, and I've had a chance to practice running several different fleeces through it and formulate an opinion on it. In a separate video, I will show you in detail how to use the machine. The Ashford e-carter is made out of a native New Zealand silver beech hardwood. It has a nice clear lacquered finish that looks very attractive. Swinging to the left of the machine, it has two 24-volt brushless motors with a planetary gear reduction driving independent drums. The weight of the machine is approximately 33.5 pounds. This is fitted with an acrylic safety cover covering the drums for safety, and an acrylic cover covering the belts, which I like because it keeps the vegetable matter out of the machine. The safety cover flips up. There is a magnet here, which is necessary to drive it forward. Lifting the acrylic cover upward, let's look at the drums. The Swift drum is 12 inches. So a nice large size, enabling us to make a large bat or large roving. The Swift drum is 72 TPI or teeth per inch, and the liquor-in drum or small drum is 36 TPI. The machine also comes with a packer brush. And there are two knobs on the side which you would loosen, and they will slide into these grooves right here. And then you can adjust them to how tightly you want this brush to lay. Now I don't use this brush, I have better results with not using it, but it does come with it and it is an option. Now we will swing over to the right hand side of the machine, and we're going to review the tools that come with it. As you would expect, it comes with a brush to clean the drums. It comes with a doffer pin, and this is used to remove the bat off of the drum, and you will slide it along the aluminum strip. It has a nice grooved area for that to sit on the side. And this machine comes with what they call a pushing stick. I would call it a paddle. And the pushing stick is used to feed the fibers into the feed-in tray up to the liquor-in drum for safety reasons, so you don't have to get your fingers near the rotating drums. So this is like your feed-in stick. What I really like about this, and I like what Ashford did here, was they drilled 3 holes in this to use as a diz. And a diz is normally a separate tool that you would purchase for removing roving off of the drum. So I really like this feature a lot. Next, let's look at the power source. So this is where the power plugs in right here. And the other plug-in here is for the foot pedal. So that plugs in right here. And this is what the foot pedal looks like. Next, let's take a closer look at the control buttons. So this is the main on and off power button. So when you turn it on, the red light will blink or flash. Then to actually activate the machine to start running, you have 2 options. You can hit this red button, or you can tap the foot pedal, and that will turn it on. As you're karting and you want it to stop, you can either tap the foot pedal again, or tap the red button again, and it will stop rotating. These 2 dials are for the speed of the Swift or the large drum and the liquor-in. So you can rotate the speed depending on obviously what type of fleece you're going to process. And also if it's your first or second pass, typically you can go faster with your second pass and you want to go slower with your first pass. This dial on the left-hand side, when it's all the way up, it's forward. This means that the drums will rotate forward for carding. The second choice is unwind, and this is when you want to remove the bat off of the drum. So this will rotate the swift in the reverse direction. It's also going to go at a slower speed, and that's built in. Unwind will operate with the acrylic cover lifted up, versus when you're carding in forward motion, the acrylic cover is required to be down. The third choice is coast, and coast means that both of the motors are not running, and you can manually and freely roll each of the drums manually. And the last choice is forward blending, and this would be the acrylic cover would be lifted upward, and it enables you to add some specialty fibers directly onto the swift drum and just skip the liquor in. So those are the choices on the control. Ashford includes their spinning wheel oil when you purchase the machine. It's the same oil as the e-spinner machine. And I will show you where they recommend placing the oil. So if you look on each side of the swift drum, or the large drum, you will be placing a drop right there. And same thing over on the right-hand side. Place a drop of oil there. Moving on to the liquor in drum, you will place a drop of oil here. And on the left-hand side of the liquor in, there's actually a small hole right there. And you'll drop a drop into that hole. So they recommend doing it every 1 to 2 hours while operating the carder. Next, I'd like to go over the pros and cons of the Ashford e-carder. The first con is that I wish the instruction manual was a little bit more thorough. It doesn't really get into details on how to run the machine or suggested settings. Additionally, I feel that the two motors are not truly independent. And what I mean by that is when I increase the speed dial for the swift drum, the liquor in drum automatically increases along with it, but the manufacturer states that this is to maintain the drum ratio. Next, let's talk about the noise. The noise of this machine is considered, I would say, medium loud. They recommend placing a square of carpet under it to help with that, but I just have mine sitting on a hard tabletop. But for example, I can stream some music, or if I'm listening to some YouTube videos with my phone, I do have to have the volume turned all the way up in order to hear it. Or if I want to have a conversation with somebody, we do have to elevate our voices in order to hear each other. In comparison, I have Ashford's e-spinner, and that runs really quietly, and you can easily listen to things while you're doing that. Another con with this machine is I don't feel it works quite as well with the shorter staple lengths. So I've run some baby doll fleeces as well as baby doll blend through here. So we're talking 2 inches or less, that's a short staple length. And it doesn't card it as smoothly. So it kind of creates like a fish scale pattern, and I'll insert a picture to show you examples of what that looked like. But it doesn't do as great of a job. Also, the liquor in drum will accumulate a lot of waste, only with the short staple lengths again. So yes, the job of the liquor in is to accumulate the extra short fibers that you wouldn't want on the big bat, but I think it's excessively accumulated with these short staple lengths. So that is a con. Let's look at some examples. This is a baby doll fleece, and the bat on the left was done on the Louette drum carder. It turned out really nicely, even considering that short staple length. The bat in the middle was done on the Ashford, and you can see that fish scale pattern where it just did not card as well. And finally, some roving off of the Ashford. Here is a close-up photo of Merle's fleece with that fish scale pattern. Also, we have Cassidy's fleece, who is a baby doll Suffolk cross. This is showing the excessive waste on the liquor in drum with the short staple length. Next, we have some roving, and this is from a lamb named Milo, a Shetland lamb. Lamb's fleece can be kind of tricky, but this did turn out quite nice. And finally, this is a Shetland fleece from a wether named Genesis, and this one turned out flawless. I did roving and a bat. The bat is only one pass, and this is how smooth it turned out with only one pass. Typically, I will do 2 passes. I've also had success with the Suffolk roving, pictured on the left, and that is only 2 to 3 inches. So it seems that the Ashford performs well when it's 2 inches or more, but when it's under 2 inches, it performs not as well. In comparison, my Louette extra large drum carder, which I have right behind it here, and that's a manual one, that one does a better job with the shorter staple length. So I think I will be using my Louette for some of the baby doll fleeces and using the longer staple lengths on my Ashford. Now, it doesn't mean that I'll never do short staple lengths on my Ashford. It's just I have to anticipate that there will be some waste with it. The last con that I have for this thing is that the liquor in drum has fewer teeth. So remember, this was 36 TPI and this was 72. And I wish that they both were 72. My Louette is like that, where it has the higher TPI for both, and I just think it does a better job for a more variety of fleeces. And so that is something that I wish it had. Next, let's go into the pros of this machine. I have to say that this is a really good quality machine. The materials are of good quality and it's of good engineering. I do like the safety covers, not only for safety, but I just like that it helps prevent all the vegetable matter from getting into it, because if you've ever done karting before, you know how messy it can be. Additionally, and this is a big one here, is that the motorized is a lifesaver. This is one of the large reasons why I chose to buy this, is I don't want to hand crank for hours and hours on end. It's very tiring, right? And I would say I have a medium-sized flock of sheep, so every year I have lots of fleeces to process, and I just simply can't do it all physically by hand. So having the motorized option is definitely a saver on your back, shoulder, everything. Also, with it being motorized, it is definitely a time saver as well, and who doesn't need more time efficiency, right, in the busy lives that we live. So I like that it can do it at a fraction of the time of doing it by hand. I will say that the Ashford works well with the long staple length. So I've done some Shetland fleeces, and I would say they're about 3 to 5 inches on average, and it works well with that. The carding is beautiful, no fish scales. I have very little waste on the liquor in drum, so 0 issues with that. It does a beautiful job with the longer staple length. And finally, to the last part, which is my most favorite part of this machine, is doing the roving. So I like that their paddle here comes with the diz built right into it. And what's awesome about this is you can use the foot pedal to rotate that drum in reverse, and that frees up both of my hands to do the diz and pull the roving off as it's rotating. So that is wonderful. Compared to my Louette, it doesn't do as well roving on the Louette. I think the Louette makes a better bat, but I like the Ashford for the roving. The roving comes out so nice on this machine. So definitely if you're a spinner and you plan on spinning a lot and doing a lot of roving, this is your machine for that. If you're considering buying this machine for yourself, and I realize that it is quite an investment, so it does pay to do your research before you choose to buy it, here are my final thoughts. I'm going to compare this with the Louette Extra Large Drum Carder. So I like my Louette Extra Large Drum Carder because it does a variety of fleeces and it cards everything well. It doesn't matter if it's a short staple length or a long staple length. The Louette will card it nicely. However, the Louette is manual, so it's very time consuming and tiring to crank that hour after hour after hour, and it's physically impossible for me to process all of my fleeces on my Louette. I like that the Louette has 72 TPI on both liquor-in and drum, and I think that contributes to the better carding action. However, with the Ashford here, the motorized action really does save my physical tiredness from kicking in, as well as my time. So that's pretty valuable to save on your health and time, obviously, with the motor. But it doesn't do as well with the shorter staple length. I will still use it for shorter lengths at times, but I just have to anticipate that there will be some waste on that liquor-in. So if you think that that bothers you a lot, having some waste, then you may want to use strictly the Louette. If you're okay with having some waste, then I would go with the Ashford, because this is faster and saves you from physical fatigue. Now, as far as the finished product, I think the Ashford does better with roving, and the Louette does better for a bat. When I try to do roving on the Louette, I think that it has such good carding action that when I'm reversing the drum, it kind of like fluffs up in the wrong direction, the roving, and it kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but it's not as smooth when you're reversing on that one. Or when I reverse on this one to do the roving, it turns out, flawless, basically. So I really like this for the roving. I like the Louette for the bats. So I hope that these help you decide which carder you'd want to buy. I'm going to be making a video on how to use this in detail, so how to use it. So what dial settings I use for what types of fleeces, and then we'll do a complete example so you can see for yourself what it looks like before deciding if it's right for you to purchase.